Smell of pine and wood smoke hit me the moment I stepped out of the car. My daughter pressed her face against the back window before I even unbuckled her seatbelt, and I could see her breath fogging up the glass in little circles. She'd been asking about Grandpa's house since we left the highway, asking if the barn cat was still there, if he still kept butterscotch candies in the blue bowl by the door, if we could walk down to the creek after lunch. "Is the cat going to remember me?" she asked, holding my hand as we walked up the gravel path. "Of course she will," I said, and I believed it. It was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. My aunt had texted the week before saying we were doing the meal early this year. Grandpa's knees had been bad, and she wanted everyone together while the weather was still manageable. I hadn't questioned it. I'd booked the Friday off work, packed a bag for my daughter, made my grandmother's cranberry sauce from scratch because my grandfather always asked for it specifically. I'd even stopped at that bakery in Barry he liked, the one with the butter tarts in the window. The front door was closed. I could hear voices inside. I knocked. My aunt opened the door about 4 inches, just enough to see her face, not enough to step through. "Oh," she said. "You came." There was something in her voice that I didn't understand yet. Not surprise exactly. Something more careful than that. "Of course I came," I said. "Is everything okay? Is Grandpa is fine?" She glanced back over her shoulder. "It's just, we moved things. We're doing a smaller gathering this year. Immediate family only." I stood there. My daughter was holding a drawing she'd made for Grandpa, a turkey made from her handprint, with his name written in purple crayon across the top. "I am immediate family," I said. My aunt looked at me, then at my daughter, then back at me. "Your cousin organized it this year," she said. "I think he just... You know how he gets about these things. It's not personal. Can I at least say hi to Grandpa? We drove 2 hours." She hesitated. "He's resting right now. Maybe next time." And then she closed the door. I stood on that porch for a moment longer than I should have. My daughter was very quiet. She looked up at me with that particular look children have when they understand something is wrong but are waiting for you to explain it away. "Is Grandpa asleep?" she asked. "I think so, baby," I said. We walked back to the car. I didn't cry until we were back on the highway, and even then, I made sure she couldn't see me in the rearview mirror. I kept thinking about the butter tarts on the back seat. I kept thinking about my grandmother's cranberry sauce in the cooler, the one she taught me to make when I was not much older than my daughter was now. I kept thinking about the look on my aunt's face. Not sorry. Not even quite embarrassed. Something more than that. Careful. My phone rang when we were about 20 minutes down the road. It was Grandpa's number. I pulled over onto the shoulder because I didn't trust my hands. "Rosie." His voice was low. "Where are you?" "We're on the 400, I said. "We're heading home. You turn around right now." "Grandpa." "I mean it." "Turn around, I didn't know you were coming, and then I heard the door, and by the time I got to the window, I saw your car leaving." He paused. "Who told you not to come in?" I didn't answer right away. "Rosie." "Who was at the door?" "It's fine," I said. "I don't want to cause anything." "You're not causing anything. I'm asking you to come back. Your daughter is with you." "She is." "Then come back. I want to see her. I want to see you. Come back." "I want to see Hugh. Come back." I looked at my daughter in the mirror. She was watching me very carefully. "Okay," I said. When we pulled back up the driveway 25 minutes later, my grandfather was standing on the porch in his cardigan with his arms crossed. He waved when he saw the car. My daughter was already pushing at her door before I'd put it in park. "There she is," he said, and he held his arms open wide, and she went to him without any hesitation at all. I hugged him after. He was thinner than I remembered from the summer. I held on a little longer than usual, and he let me. Inside the house, there was a moment of stillness when we came through the door. My aunt was in the kitchen. My cousin was sitting at the dining room table with his wife, and he looked up when I walked in with an expression that wasn't quite anything. Not guilty, not surprised, just flat in a way that I filed away and didn't examine yet. Grandpa didn't acknowledge any of it. He brought us in, like he always did. Got my daughter settled with the butterscotch candies. Yes, they were still in the blue bowl, and sent my aunt to get more chairs without asking. We ate. It was awkward in the particular way that family meals are awkward when everyone is pretending something isn't happening. My cousin talked too much about his renovation project. His wife kept refilling water glasses. My aunt watched my grandfather the way you watch someone you're not sure of. My grandfather mostly talked to my daughter. He asked her about school. He asked her what chapter she was on in her book. He asked her about the drama club play, which I hadn't even realized she'd mentioned to him, and she lit up and spent 10 minutes describing her costume. After the meal, my cousin and his wife started clearing the table, and my aunt took my daughter to see if the barn cat was still around. My grandfather looked at me across the table and said, "Help me get to the study." He didn't need help walking. We both knew that. I followed him in and he closed the door. He sat down in the chair behind his desk, the green leather one that had always been there, and he was quiet for a moment. The room smelled like him. Old books and that particular cedar of the closet behind the door. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I want you to let me finish before you say anything." I nodded. "You know about the RRSPs," he said. I did. He'd told me about them years ago. 2 accounts he'd opened in the 1980s, been contributing to ever since. He'd always been quiet about the exact amount, but I knew they existed. He told me once, when I graduated, that he wanted to make sure I knew they were there, that he had plans. "I've been trying to access them," he said, "for about 6 months now, to consolidate them, because the financial advisor, the new one, not Harold, the new one said it made sense to move everything to one institution, given my age and the estate plan." He folded his hands on the desk. "When I called to start the process, they told me the accounts had been transferred." I looked at him. "Transferred," I said. "Both of them. About 14 months ago. The paperwork has my signature on it. I did not sign that paperwork." The room was very quiet. "Grandpa, I know what you're thinking," he said. "I know, but I've been very careful. I showed the documents to Harold, old Harold, you remember him, and he was the one who told me that the signature wasn't right. Not just wrong, deliberately wrong. Like someone had practiced it but hadn't quite gotten the angle of the letters. Where were they transferred to?" He looked at the desk. "An account that my grandson set up," he said, "in his name, jointly with his wife." I sat back. My cousin. The one who'd just been at the table. The one who'd watched me walk through the front door with that flat, careful expression. "Have you talked to a lawyer?" I asked. "I talked to a lawyer 3 weeks ago," he said. "I have talked to the bank's fraud department. I have filed a report with the police. It's moving slowly. These things move slowly." He paused. "I'm telling you this because I want you to understand why things are the way they are right now, why your aunt is nervous, why I need to be careful about what I say, and to whom, while this is being looked into." "Does my aunt know?" "She suspects," he said. "She doesn't know the specifics. I haven't told her about the accounts specifically because I don't entirely know where her loyalties are, and I hate that I have to say that about my own daughter." I thought about the door. My aunt at the door. 4 inches. That careful expression. Was she the one who told them I was coming? I asked. "Yes," he said simply. We sat there for a moment. "I'm not angry with her," he said. "She's in a hard position. She loves him. He's her nephew. I understand that." He picked up a pen from the desk and set it down again. "What I'm not able to do is pretend it didn't happen. I'm 81 years old. I have a bad knee and I take too many pills and I am not confused about what is mine." His voice was steady. That was the thing about my grandfather. His voice was always steady. He'd lost my grandmother 6 years ago and I'd watched him at the funeral and his voice was steady then too. And I thought it was distance. And then afterward I found out he'd gone out to the back field behind the house and stayed there alone for 3 hours and none of us had followed him. Some people hold things differently. It doesn't mean they're not holding them. "The lawyer," I said, can they get it back?" "That's what we're working on," he said. "It's a lengthy process. The fraud report creates a paper trail. The bank is cooperating, which is something. The amounts are significant enough that it's being taken seriously." He paused. "It will likely be resolved, eventually, but it will take time. And in the meantime, I have to live in this house and see these people and act as though nothing has been decided yet, because legally, nothing has." I thought about my cousin at the table, his renovation project, his wife refilling water glasses. "I don't know how you sit at that table," I said. "I've had practice," he said. And then, very quietly, "Your grandmother could do it. She used to say that you never let anyone know what you know before you're ready to use it. She was much better at it than I am." He looked at the door. The voices from the other room were muffled. "I'm changing the estate documents," he said. I've already started that process. My lawyer is handling it. Everything that was designated for him is being redistributed. He looked back at me. I want you to know that. I want you to know that regardless of how long the fraud case takes, the estate documents are already changed. That part is done. I didn't know what to say to that. Grandpa, that's not why I know it's not, he said. I know that, but I want you to know anyway because you drove 2 hours and you were turned away at the door and you turned around when I asked and you didn't make a scene at the table even though you had every right to. I noticed those things. He leaned back in the chair. Your grandmother used to say that the people who show up are the ones who love you, not the ones who talk about showing up, the ones who actually do it. My daughter had scratched her initials into the corner of his desk when she was 4 years old. He'd never fixed it. He'd laughed about it. I could see the small letters from where I was sitting, her initials, a little lopsided, dug into the wood. I looked at him. What do I do? I asked. Right now, tonight, at this table. What do I do with knowing this? Nothing, he said. That's the hardest part, and you smile, and you help clear the table, and you let your daughter tell him about her play because she doesn't know any of this and she shouldn't, and then you drive home and you let the lawyers do their work. He picked up the pen again, and you answer when I call. We went back out to the table. My cousin's wife had brought out pie, store-bought, which in any other circumstance would have been a small, funny thing to note. But right now, I just accepted a slice and said it was good. My grandfather sat at the head of the table and watched my daughter tell my cousin about the drama club play, and my cousin nodded and smiled, and my grandfather's face was completely still, and I thought about what it costs a person to hold things the way he was holding them. After dessert, my daughter asked to go look for the barn cat before it got dark, and my aunt offered to take her, and they went out the side door together. The men talked about hockey. I helped stack plates. My cousin came into the kitchen while I was running water for the dishes. Good you could make it, he said. I didn't look up from the sink. Good to be here, I said. He stood there for a moment, like he was deciding something. Then he got himself a glass of water and went back to the dining room. My grandfather was standing in the doorway watching. He caught my eye and said nothing, just nodded once, slowly, and went to sit back down. We left around 7. Grandpa walked us out to the car, which he didn't have to do with his knee, but he did it anyway. He picked up my daughter and held her for a moment, which made her squeal, and then he put her in the back seat and buckled her himself because she let him. He came around to my side of the car. Thank you for coming back, he said. Always, I said. He put his hand on my arm for a moment. Then he stepped back, and I pulled out of the driveway, and when I looked in the mirror, he was still standing there in the dark in his cardigan, getting smaller. My daughter fell asleep before we hit the highway. I drove for a long time without the radio, just the dark and the highway and the orange glow of the off-ramps, and I kept going over the conversation in the study, turning it in my mind like something I'd found and hadn't fully identified yet. 6 months of phone calls to the bank, a signature that wasn't right, a police report filed quietly while Thanksgiving was being planned, while the water glasses were being refilled. I thought about all the times I'd been in that house and hadn't known. All the Sunday calls, all the butter tarts. I thought about my cousin sitting across from my grandfather at that table week after week, and I couldn't find a way to understand it that made any sense. So I stopped trying to understand it and just let it be the thing that it was. My daughter stirred in the back seat around Barry. Mom, I'm here. Go back to sleep. Did Grandpa like the turkey picture? I thought about it on the porch. She'd still had it in her hand when we got back. She'd given it to him before dinner, and he'd held it at arm's length the way people do when they need reading glasses. And then he'd said, very seriously, that it was the best turkey he'd ever seen. He loved it, I said. Okay, she said, and she went back to sleep. About 3 months later, I got a call from my grandfather's lawyer's office. I wasn't surprised exactly, but I sat down anyway. The woman on the phone explained that the estate documents had been finalized and that I was listed as a beneficiary. She said she couldn't discuss the details of the ongoing fraud investigation, but that I might receive a separate call from the bank in due course. I said thank you and hung up. Then I called my grandfather. He picked up on the second ring. Did they reach you? He asked. They did, I said. Good. A pause. How's your daughter? She's good. She got a speaking part in the spring play. I knew she would, he said, like he'd been certain all along. I want to hear about it. Tell her to call me and tell me about it herself. I will, I said. And Rosie? He waited a beat. I'm sorry about the door. It wasn't your door, I said. No, he said, but it was my house. We stayed on the phone for a while after that, talking about nothing in particular. The weather, the barn cat, which apparently had produced a litter of kittens in late November and was now, as my grandfather put it, insufferably pleased with herself. He said my daughter could have one if I agreed, which I hadn't, but which I was thinking about. The fraud case moved slowly, like he'd said. These things do. But it moved. My cousin's renovation project stalled out. His wife stopped coming to family things. My aunt called me in February just to talk, and we talked for almost an hour, which hadn't happened in years. She didn't say anything directly about what had happened, but she asked how Grandpa seemed when I talked to him. She asked if he seemed okay. He seems like himself, I said. He seems steady. Good, she said. That's good. I think she was relieved to hear it. I think she'd been carrying something too, in her way. My grandfather's knee got better in the spring. He walked down to the creek with my daughter when we visited in May, the two of them in rubber boots, and I watched them from the porch. This small girl and this old man, moving slowly along the bank, pointing at things, talking about whatever they were talking about. I couldn't hear them from where I was standing. I didn't need to. Some things you don't need to hear to know they're good. You just need to show up. You just to show up. You need to turn around when someone calls and asks you to. You need to keep the number on your phone and answer it. And when they say, come back, you go back. That's the whole thing, really. That's all it is. I've thought a lot about what my grandfather said in that study, not the part about the accounts or the forged signature or the lawyer. The other part, the part about my grandmother. She used to say that you never let anyone know what you know before you're ready to use it. I didn't understand that fully when he told me. I thought it was about strategy, about being smart, about protecting yourself. But the more I sat with it, the more I think it's actually about something quieter than that. It's about choosing not to let someone else's worst behavior become the thing that defines how you move through the world. My grandfather sat at that table week after week and passed the gravy and asked about the renovation and watched. Not because he was weak, because he was waiting for the right moment, and because he refused to become ugly, just because someone around him had. That takes something. A particular kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. I think about my cousin a lot too. Not with anger anymore, mostly just with a kind of sadness, because whatever he thought he was getting, whatever calculation he made when he signed my grandfather's name on those documents, he didn't account for the one thing that actually mattered, that my grandfather was paying attention, that the people who loved him were paying attention. You can take advantage of someone's age, their trust, their generosity, but you can't outrun the record of who you've been. It catches up. It always does. Not because the universe is keeping score in any mystical sense, but because choices leave traces, and traces accumulate, and eventually there is simply too much evidence to ignore. What I keep coming back to is the drawing. My daughter's handprint turkey, her initials in purple crayon, given to an 81-year-old man through a door that had just been shut in her face. She didn't know what that door meant. She just knew she wanted to give him the picture. And she did, and he kept it. I think that's the thing I want to carry forward. Not the fraud case, not the estate documents, not any of it, just that. The willingness to show up anyway. The decision to turn around when someone calls, even when you've already been hurt, even when the road is long and the car is dark and you're not entirely sure what you're going back to. My daughter is going to grow up and face situations where people she trusts will let her down, where she'll be turned away at doors she thought were open to her. I can't protect her from that, but I can show her what to do with it, that you don't let it make you small. You don't let it teach you to keep people at arm's length. You don't trade your ability to love generously for the temporary safety of not getting hurt. You show up. You answer the phone. You take the butter tarts and the cranberry sauce and you drive back up the gravel path. And when the old man is standing on the porch in his cardigan waving at you, you get out of the car and you go to him. That's the whole thing. That really is all it is.